For Saturday, August 22nd, 2020. This is, what did you do? Come back to me. There it is. This is the Pro and Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. Welcome to the show. Somehow uh, my presentation slide slipped a notch there. But anyway, here we go. So, purpose of the show, encourage us all to be better citizens, to be more aware, right? And so I talk about different information sources and how they're comparing and contrasting the information or and basically bending the facts, the basic facts being the who, the what, the where, and the when, how they're bending that and presenting it to try to influence the people that tune in, if you will, to that information stream. And encouraging all of us to ferret out the truth, which means we need to understand where other people are coming from, okay? Because there is truth there, pro and con, good and bad, for and against. Today's show is just an update on the election. So the Democratic Convention just finished this week, and Mr. Biden was officially nominated as the Democratic candidate from the Democratic Party, and Kamala Harris, and her first name is pronounced Kamala. She was also nominated, and lots of speeches and stuff. They had a handful of fairly prominent Republicans, John Kasich. They had Colin Powell, and so interestingly enough, there were several well-known Republicans who spoke at the Democratic Convention, urging people to vote for Mr. Biden and make sure that they weren't voting for Mr. Trump, because many of us, including myself, and again for me, has nothing to do with Republican versus Democrat. Policy or anything like that. Clearly, Mr. Trump has some mental health issues, and they're serious, and therefore, me being who I am and knowing that especially the fact that there's a nuclear arsenal that's more than able to wipe out humanity as we know it around the world at his fingertips, this is something that we just can't abide. And so I've been aggressively saying that he needs to be removed from office, not anything to do with policy, everything to do with the fact that he has mental health issues. But anyway, so that's what happened. The Democratic Convention occurred this week, and then I encourage you, and I've said this in previous updates on the election. There is a website called Real Clear Politics, and there's all kinds of stuff on there. But the main thing that I would encourage you to do is just look at the polls. They list all the polls that have been going on in the country right there in one convenient place, and then you can look at the polling from the different sources. For example, Morning Call or Rasmussen or The Economist or Reuters, CNN, ABC, Gallup, and on and on and on, right? And these are all different sources, people, different organizations that are paying for polling so that in their various cases, they use it as part of their story. They've gathered some data and then they can publish a story about this. So this week, on Monday, the general election, so ABC and Washington Post had Biden up plus 10% or 10 points across the country. CNN had Biden plus 4, so a lot smaller. And CNN in the previous thing had quite a bit bigger. So either their polling is changing, the people that they're polling, or the group is changing its mind, if you will, that they are polling. One of the big things that surprises in all this is there's these approval, disapproval ratings for Mr. Trump and his job approval. And so on Wednesday of this week, Wednesday, August 19th, Reuters, Political Economist, YouGov, they had approval 42, disapproval 56, approval 39, disapproval 59. 39, 59, that's a 20-point difference. Approved 43, disapproved 54, that's an 11-point difference. So on average on Wednesday, it's something like 14 plus 14 points for disapproval of Mr. Trump in his job. But then today there was Rasmussen has a poll result, and the approve was +4, so approve 51, disapproval 47, and that's a huge difference. So this is one of the reasons why I strongly urge you to look at Real Clear Politics, because what I have seen in my past looking at this is that you'll have kind of wild polls that aren't the norm, and they are not consistent with the other polling that's going on. And if you only saw that particular poll, you would say, oh, this is very much, different than you would say what you would say if you saw all the polls like this approval, disapproval. So the Rasmussen Report poll either is in great error, or the areas, the people that they're polling are much more pro Mr. Trump than the other areas that are being polled by Reuters, Politico, and The Economist. Okay. But on the whole, it looks like across the nation in the general election, Mr. Biden is ahead of Mr. Trump by 8 percentage points, roughly, fairly consistently. And the second statement is that Mr. Trump's job approval rating is +10 at least, +10 or 12 on the disapprove side. Okay, so, and then, the individual, some of these swing states, Pennsylvania, Biden +10, Minnesota, which I go to work frequently over in Minnesota, just across the border here from Hudson, Wisconsin. Trafalgar Group poll says it's a dead heat tie, Trump versus Biden in Minnesota. Let's see here. Last week, let's see if there's other. So North Carolina is a tie. So there's a lot of these swing states that are just apparently pretty close to being a dead heat. And so this election is really going to come down to the wire. It looks like there's 72 or 73 days until the election, and the polls are still fairly tight. And so step by step, the other thing you may have noticed, I've noticed, is if you watch any television or watch anything at all, the level of political ads has gone much higher. It's a step change. And so, for example, if you're watching and there's a commercial break and whatever it is that you're watching, you're going to see an ad from Mr. Trump, and then right behind it an ad from Mr. Biden. And sometimes, I've seen this a couple of times, an ad for Mr. Trump, an ad for Mr. Biden, an ad for Mr. Trump, and then an ad for Mr. Biden, right back to back to back to back to back. This is one of the reasons why this whole system that we have is terrible. And you, if you're a typical American, are very frustrated by all of the political ads and stuff that go on, and all the attacking back and forth. and we could get rid of it all, and we should get rid of it all, because this whole thing that we do with the two political parties and the us versus them and the propaganda and the rhetoric and all that, and the commercials and all that stuff, all it does is cause us to elect these people that are really bad choices to begin with. And, so you're always picking between various people. Not always. There are actually some good, people in government, but many of the candidates that we choose from, because of our current political process, there are so many of you out there would be so much better serving for a period of 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years in a particular office than the slates of all these people that are trying to get elected. I guarantee it. If we were to do citizen statesmen and cast a wide net and then sift through those to select the very best people, and then just say, okay, you just like jury duty, you are required to serve. It's part of our understanding of what it takes to be a citizen is to say, well, if I am selected and people ultimately determine that I'm the best person to be the representative from the 3rd District in North Carolina, then I have to serve. And that's part of being a citizen, part of being an American, is that, if you are in that process, if you happen to be randomly selected, and then you proceed in that process and you end up being selected by the rest of us because we think you're, one of the better candidates, then you have to serve. That's it. And you may not like it, just like jury duty. Okay? Most people are not enthusiastic at all about jury duty, but it's part and parcel. Part of being a citizen is that sometimes you have to contribute to the good of the whole. Citizen statesman, 28th Amendment. Okay, so enough about the election. This has been the Pro and Con Show. My name is Michael James Ott, and until the next show, bye for now.